Cooldowns for specials in fighting games is a contentious nuance to add to an already complex genre. It's something we've seen for decades now in RTSs, MOBAs and MMOs, but for us it really first appeared in its rawest form in Rising Thunder. Now if you missed it there, you're probably getting accustomed to it in Cygame's Granblue Versus, but it begs the question, does this mechanic actually add anything interesting to our genre? When I first saw this in a fighting game, my first impression was definitely, what does this achieve that meter management doesn't? You see, the whole purpose of a cooldown is to limit yourself or the opponent after using a particular attack. But to me, this was no different than spending a bit of meter on an EX or a super. You spend the meter, but you can no longer do the attack. However, let's think about how you actually gain meter. Pretty universally across fighting games, the primary way to gain meter is to attack. Be that actually getting hits, or in Guilty Gear's case, even just moving forward. You're far less rewarded for being on the defense. Even if they do give some small meter gain for blocking or getting hit, it's not really that much. There are cases of meters being specifically built for comebacks, such as Ultra Meter in Street Fighter 4, but they function separately to the special meter. With this in mind, let's compare two very similar situations. Street Fighter 4 Zangief after an EX Green Hand, and Ladiva in Granblue after an EX Headbutt. So, when Zangief gets a hit with a normal, he wants to combo into Green Hand. It gives him an advantage on hit and allows him to go for the mix-up, with the trade-off obviously being that he spent meter. Let's simplify the mix-up after the successful Green Hand down to a 50-50 and disregard any option selects for the sake of clarity. You either go for an SBD or you go for a normal attack. If the opponent blocks, they are hit by the SBD. If they try and escape the SBD, they can be hit by a normal. Now let's say that Zangief guesses wrong, goes for a normal attack and the opponent is blocking. This resets them back to neutral. If you do not have the meter for another EX Green Hand, you're basically forced to move in and attack to regain this meter. Although you might be patient about it, the end goal is the same. The opponent in return will want to keep you out and can do this safer now because of the absence of Green Hands. Ladiva's EX Headbutt puts you in the exact same situation on block, a 50-50 between SPD or buttons. Once again, let's assume you guessed wrong and you're back in neutral. Now obviously you're a grappler, you want to get in, but with EX Headbutt being such a fundamental tool for her neutral, you're gonna struggle. Unlike Zangief however, she won't have to make some big read just to get that tool back. Instead, she can simply wait and maintain her control of the screen defensively while the special comes off cooldown. She can still try and make a read to get in because if she does, the combo and even the block string can cut off time off that cooldown, but she doesn't have to do this. And this also changes how the opponent responds to you. They might have to go in on you because they can see you're waiting for that cooldown to finish. The key here is both characters have been limited, but the way in which they need to respond to those limitations are different and more diverse in the case of cooldowns. Now in Street Fighter 4, you can have multiple stocks of EX, meaning there's a bigger game of meter management that runs through the course of the entire set, and this is where the complexity and interest lies in a traditional system, resource management. Another fascinating ramification of the cooldown system is the effect it can have on projectiles. The way the Granblue Versus deals with them is the moment the projectile disappears, the cooldown begins. That means, if you evade a projectile rather than blocking it in neutral, you'll naturally extend the amount of time it takes for that move to come back into play, as it will have to travel the entire distance of the screen before the cooldown starts, rewarding good reactions. The same mechanic exists in normal fighting games, as you're normally only able to have one projectile on screen at a time, but this cooldown exaggerates the consequence of whiffing and can be something developers play around with for balance. Pressure is another thing that's different with the cooldown system. It has parallels to normal metered pressure, but even with non-EX specials, when you spend them to say frame trap or continuous string, not having that option anymore makes your aggression far less complex. You can see this very clearly with characters such as Charlotta. If she's already used EX 100 hands, she loses the ability to safely frame trap when you're blocking and easily continue her momentum. Instead, she'll either have to potentially give up her turn with an EX Blanka Ball or make a big read with a Demon Flip. And because you know 100 hands is no longer available, this reduces your mental stack and you don't have to be prepared for that option, so reacting to the others accordingly is way easier. So as you can see, there is a difference, and an interesting one at that. The thing I find most exciting about this mechanic is the potential behind balance patches. Loopable pressure, although not a huge issue for me in general, it's a definite gripe that comes up when a top tier character is also a mix-up character. The developer response to this is often to remove the loopable mix-up or make it meter dependent. When it becomes a metered loopable mix-up, it's fine for early rounds, but the second or third round, the player can potentially have full meter, and that makes for a massive snowball effect on knockdown. The alternative to this is entirely removing the mix-up, and that can just leave a character feeling neutered and potentially lose some of their design that makes them interesting to the player. A cooldown can make it so a character can land one mix-up loop, but then has to find an alternative route for Oki, as their combo doesn't fully wait out the time needed to get access to that special, which allows for the desired mix-up, which is a way more interesting compromise than just getting rid of it altogether. I would never in my life advocate for all fighting games to have a cooldown system. I would absolutely hate that. It would be the dullest shit ever. But it's worth being open-minded to the potential behind it. New mechanics in fighting games always feel cumbersome and alien in the early days, but as the meta starts to develop, they more often than not provide us with an interesting twist on a genre we're all so familiar with, and that's exciting. We've all been playing fighting games for, 10 to 20 to like 25 years now. Having new takes is a good thing, and it's what makes this genre fresh. So hopefully that was interesting to some of you, and have a great day and take care of yourself.